Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev, where today we continue working on our super retro take on Minecraft. Now, last time we attempted to fix the player's jump system and tried starting on converting Minecraft's inventory system into something more fitting of our retro aesthetic. The key words here being attempted and tried, because neither endeavors were very successful. Indeed, while progress was made, we learned several ways to not code jumping and inventory systems. But today that changes, because failures aren't going to stop us from continuing to try. We'll be focusing exclusively on the inventory system this time, trying a few new approaches in order to make our idea a reality. And hopefully in the end we'll be able to say that we conquered one of our previous failures through some good old-fashioned determination. So let's not waste any more time and get to the coding. For my first attempt, I wanted to try using simple arrays to keep track of inventory items. I thought about using a 2D array, but to keep it as simple as possible, two separate arrays would be used instead. And while changing the code to accommodate these two new arrays, I noticed my math was off in the draw loop, which might have attributed to the mess last time. Regardless, the math was fixed and our new attempt was ready to begin. So, in the add script, the argument refers to the position in the array where the script will update the data. And so far, things were working properly. Thank goodness. So next it was time for the hard part. In the check script, I opted to try using a while loop here. If an output wasn't defined, the code would loop through the inventory array and try to find a matching resource to stack, which ended up causing a memory leak. Yeah, there's a reason I never use while loops. So it was back to the drawing board. Next, I tried using a repeat loop that would iterate through our inventory array until it finds a match. And if it isn't able to find a match by the end of the array list, then for now, it would default to the first position. This would work, but when trying to have the position check for a new space, for a new resource, things went south. And in my desperation, I tried repeating the process with a second variable to keep track of a different position determined based on the outcome of the first. And it was a whole mess that ended up not working. So I took a break, came back, and decided to return to using DS lists and nested arrays. Because I was adamant that I could make it work, I just had to focus. So the nested array setup was placed back in, and once again, it was time for the hard part. In the check script, we would need a new variable for a temporary DS list. This will be explained in a bit. First, a loop would iterate through our inventory list, and any entries with a matching resource would have their positions added to the new temporary DS list. Then, if that temp list came back with entries, the first entry in that list would be the target passed on to the add script. However, if the temp list comes back empty, then the first empty space in our inventory list would be the target. Now, I realize that this may sound confusing, so here's a visual example. Let's say we're looking to add dirt to our inventory. The check code will scan the inventory list and temporarily keep track of the position of any entries that are dirt. Then the script goes through that temp list, finds the first time dirt appeared, and tells the add script, hey, this is where the new dirt data should be stored. Now, initially this code worked, kind of. The 49 meant our script ended up running through the entire list without ever stopping when the conditionals were met. So a stopper had to be added, which I called get it because at this point I was tired of thinking up nice short names for my variables. This get it boolean would now stop the script from continuing to loop once the conditionals were met. And this almost worked. Seriously, we were one step away from this actually working properly. The issue now was that the inventory list position data was being skewed somewhere. Turns out I was simply overthinking the list position output. Instead of looking for an index, I simply had to define the first index in our temp list, which kinda seems obvious in hindsight. Anyway, this indeed ended up working, and finally, after hours upon hours of failures, our inventory system with automated stacking was completed. Now, I originally went with a temp DS list because I wanted to code in some restrictions. For example, only being able to carry 64 of a resource per stack, which meant having to do another loop based on more nested array data. And halfway through I realized I really didn't have the energy to try this one. For now, the inventory works as is, and maybe somewhere down the line I will revisit things to add stacking restrictions, but quitting while I was ahead seemed like a mighty fine idea at this point. So yes, after roughly 5+ hours accumulated of coding, not including all the time I spent trying to think of ways to approach this, we finally had a working automated stack system. It still needs refining, but I'm just glad to not have a repeat of last episode. However, while I have conquered one monster, there is yet another that awaits, and likely even more beyond it. But alas, that'll have to wait because this brings us to the end of today's episode of Let's Dev. So leave a like if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already, and leave your thoughts on our progress in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.